the moment my grandmother's will was opened. My brother-in-law leaned back in his chair with the kind of smile that made my stomach tighten. He had spent years insisting that Grandma would never leave her fortune to someone like me. And now he seemed certain that everything had finally gone his way. But just as the lawyer began reading the final section of the will, he stopped, looked around the room, and quietly said that Grandma had left one additional message. It was a video, and nobody in that room was prepared to hear what she had recorded before she died. Before we get into what Grandma revealed, stay with me until the end because the final decision she made completely changed the balance of power in this family. And if you enjoy emotional family stories where the truth eventually comes out, consider subscribing so you do not miss the next story. My name's Eliza, and for most of my life, Grandma was the one person in my family who never made me feel like I had to earn my place at the table. She was warm, observant, and much sharper than people gave her credit for. After my parents passed away, she became the person I called whenever life felt too heavy. She never had to say much. Sometimes she would simply make tea, sit beside me, and listen. But after she became seriously ill, certain relatives suddenly started appearing around her far more often than they ever had before. The biggest change came when my brother-in-law, Marcus, began visiting Grandma almost every weekend. At first, I was relieved because I thought he genuinely wanted to spend time with her. But slowly, his questions became strange. He wanted to know whether she had changed her will, whether the house had been appraised, and whether she had any investments that the family did not know about. Whenever I mentioned Grandma, he somehow brought the conversation back to money. I tried not to judge him, but I started noticing how carefully he watched Grandma whenever she talked about her future. One afternoon, I arrived at Grandma's house and found Marcus sitting across from her with several papers spread across the table. When I walked in, the conversation immediately stopped. Marcus smiled and told me they had only been discussing practical matters. Grandma looked at me for a second longer than usual, then quietly changed the subject. Later that evening, she took my hand and told me that people sometimes reveal their true intentions when they believe nobody is watching. I asked what she meant, but she only smiled and said that I would understand someday. Over the next few months, Marcus became even more confident. He openly joked that Grandma had always known who the responsible members of the family were. He never said my name, but everyone understood what he meant. At one family dinner, he even laughed and said that some people only remembered Grandma when they needed something. I wanted to defend myself, but Grandma placed her hand on my arm beneath the table, silently telling me to let it go. Looking back, I realized she was not asking me to surrender. She was asking me to wait. A few weeks before Grandma passed away, she called me to her house alone. She looked tired, but her mind was completely clear. She told me that she had already made arrangements for everything, and then she said something that I will never forget. She told me that the family would probably argue about her belongings, but she did not want me to fight anyone. Instead, she wanted me to trust the decision she had made. Before I left, she gave me a small envelope and told me not to open it unless the lawyer contacted me after her death. 3 weeks later, our family gathered at the lawyer's office. The atmosphere was uncomfortable from the moment we walked through the door. Marcus sat beside his wife and looked unusually relaxed. When the lawyer opened the will, Marcus exchanged a quick glance with her and smiled. The first few items were ordinary. Personal belongings went to different family members, and several charitable donations were mentioned. Then the lawyer reached the section everyone had been waiting for. Marcus leaned forward, almost unable to hide his excitement. The lawyer read Grandma's decision regarding the house and her remaining financial assets. Marcus's expression changed immediately. He had expected something completely different. Before he could say anything, the lawyer raised one hand and explained that the document contained an additional instruction. Grandma had recorded a video specifically for the family, and she had requested that it be played only after the will had been read. The room became completely silent. Marcus looked toward the lawyer and asked why a video was necessary. The lawyer simply said that Grandma had wanted everyone to hear her explanation in her own words. The screen turned on and Grandma appeared sitting in her favorite chair. She looked older and weaker than I remembered, but her eyes were calm. She began by saying that she knew some people were already counting what they believed they would receive. Marcus lowered his eyes. Then Grandma explained that she had spent the final year of her life watching how everyone treated her when they believed there was something to gain. She said that genuine love did not suddenly appear when money entered the conversation. It was visible in the ordinary moments when nobody expected anything in return. Then Grandma mentioned the house. She explained that it would not be sold or divided simply because certain relatives expected a financial reward. Instead, she had arranged for it to become part of a family support fund, with the remaining assets divided according to the written instructions in her will. But there was one condition. Anyone who had pressured her, manipulated her, or treated her affection like an investment would receive nothing beyond what she had already legally specified. Marcus suddenly stood up and insisted that the video was unfair. The lawyer calmly reminded him that Grandma had recorded it voluntarily and had signed the necessary documents while fully competent. Then came the part nobody expected. Grandma revealed that she had known about the conversations taking place behind her back. She had kept copies of certain messages and notes because she wanted the lawyer to understand why she had changed her plans. She never wanted revenge, she said. She simply wanted her final decision to protect the people who had treated her with genuine kindness. Marcus sat down slowly. The confidence he had carried into the room was gone. For the first time, he had nothing clever to say. The lawyer then explained one final condition. A portion of Grandma's estate would be used to help elderly people who had no family to care for them. Grandma said in the video that she had spent enough years watching people fight over what belonged to them, and she wanted her final gift to help people who had nothing to fight over. She looked directly into the camera and said that an inheritance should never be considered a reward for pretending to love someone. Those words completely changed the mood in the room. Even the people who had expected money could not argue with what she had chosen to do. After the video ended, nobody spoke for several seconds. Marcus eventually apologized, but I could tell that his apology was not really about Grandma. He was embarrassed because his expectations had been exposed. I did not argue with him. I simply remembered what Grandma had told me months earlier about letting people reveal themselves. She had never needed to publicly humiliate anyone. She had simply made sure the truth could no longer be hidden. That evening, I returned home and finally opened the small envelope Grandma had given me. Inside was a handwritten note. She had written that the greatest inheritance she could leave me was not money, property, or jewelry. It was the ability to recognize people by their actions rather than their promises. I cried when I read those words because I realized she had understood everything long before I did. Grandma did not defeat Marcus by taking something away from him. She simply refused to let greed decide what her love was worth. And sometimes, the most powerful form of karma is not revenge at all. It is allowing the truth to speak for itself. Grandma taught me something that money could never buy. People can pretend to care, pretend to love you, and even pretend to stand beside you, but eventually their actions reveal everything. Her final decision was not about punishing anyone. It was about protecting the meaning of her love. If this story reminded you that true family is measured by actions rather than inheritance, leave a comment telling me what you would have done in Eliza's place. And if you enjoyed the story, like the video, share it with someone who appreciates emotional stories about truth, family, and karma, and subscribe for the next story.